Hey everyone, on this episode of Witchpolice Radio, I'm talking to two members of Sebastian Owl. The band has been around for 8 years and released 6 records, but at the beginning of November, they're calling it quits. They're holding their last ever show and their last ever CD release for a new record that's called The Ties That Bind. We talked about that album, their long history, and a lot more. As you may have noticed lately, I'm recording these episodes and releasing them a lot more quickly than I had before. At one point, I had such a huge backlog of episodes that I had to switch to releasing 2 a week just to keep up. I'm still aiming for 2 episodes a week, but I've gone through most of that massive backlog. So in general, you're going to hear episodes a lot sooner from the time I record them to the time they get released.
Thank you to everyone who supports my dad's show. If you'd like to support Witchpolice Radio, go to patreon.com/witchpolice today.
You're listening to Garbage Hill, Winnipeg's first podcast network.
Alright, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. I am here at a house again. It's not always a given that I'm going to be at a house because of the nature of the show. It could be the back of someone's van or like a rooftop or...
alleyway.
A house is nice. It's always nice to be back in a house. And I'm with two people who have not been on the show before, and they have a lot to talk about. A lot of things going on with their band in kind of a final sort of way. So if you guys want to introduce yourselves first, we can sort of get going from there.
Go from there. Yeah. All right. I'm Blair Atkinson. I am the songwriter and singer of Sebastian Owl.
And I'm Ian Russell. I play bass and do backup vocals for Sebastian Owl.
Cool. And who are we missing?
We're missing Logan McKillop, who's all over Canada, so we never really know where he is. And then Colton McKillop, and we're missing Glenn Radley.
Okay. And is that how long has that been in the lineup? Is this...
that lineup?
Maybe 2 years?
Well, maybe just to rewind from that. I mean, how long has Sebastian Owl been a thing? I think I first heard the name maybe 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay.
And I don't really have much background for how long you guys have been together and what's sort of been the...
Ian and I started, I think, 2010 in Brandon, Manitoba.
Okay.
Yeah, I think about 8 years ago we started.
Okay.
And we were in Brandon for about 4 years, and now we've been in Winnipeg for about the same amount.
That might explain why I hadn't heard until the Winnipeg thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Brandon was a very sequestered town musically, but when we came up, it was actually quite an amazing music scene. There was 5 original bands, and we were all friends. We all supported each other, and it was just a great time to come up and start something.
Well, that's something that's kind of come up a few times on this show recently, actually, is that I think that for all of Winnipeg's music scene being so tight-knit and everyone's sort of really embedded in it, I think one of the failings of the Winnipeg music scene is most people don't pay attention to what's going on outside the city. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, Brandon obviously is the second biggest city in the province, but, I mean, I don't think a lot of people from here had any clue what's happening in Brandon.
No.
And like, so what was the Brandon music scene like for you? I mean, just to get, like, a picture of what kind of... What's happening there? It
was insanity. To be honest, there was 5 bands. There was the Basement Revival, there was Neon Blunt, there was Take With Audio, Affecting Cause, and then us, the little guys, who were coming up. So we kind of came up more folk-oriented, and the other groups were kind of all over the map with ska and like rock and kind of blues rock stuff. And it was just a tight-knit group of like-minded people who were just... They were all incredibly talented and incredibly accommodating, and there was the main band, the biggest band was Take With Audio, and they had this loft space that they lived in that we all kind of partied in, which was a block away from the Double Decker, which was the main band, or the main bar that we all played in. And it was just, a great time. We were so young and naive, and we didn't know what we didn't know, and it was just a great time to kind of stretch your creative muscles and fail.
Well, I mean, I've been to Brandon a number of times. I like Brandon. It's a nice city. But my only experience with the music scene there is I played a show there in, I want to say 2008 or something. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like everyone was super into metal. I don't know if that was just at the time. But, I mean, there was a bunch of local bands and they were all metal. And all the kids were super, super into metal. Like,
There was
where people were barfing on the merch table, it was like drunk. It was just
where did you play?
Community center.
That makes sense. Because that's the thing too. Like Brandon was so small, but they had their little groups that you wouldn't, if you weren't in that metal scene, you probably wouldn't have associated with them, even how small Brandon was.
Yeah. And I was thinking, sorry.
We had our scene, and then there were all these other scenes. Like there was definitely a metal scene in Brandon, but we didn't really even hang out with them, or
we were too fragile.
Yeah.
But when did you come from Brandon to Winnipeg? It was 4 years ago. What was the circumstance for both of you to come here?
Well, we started in Brandon with Trevor Crook on drums and Dave Comrie on guitar.
Okay.
And Trevor was in Take With Audio, the kind of bigger band.
Yeah.
And so they all made the trek to Toronto.
Okay.
And so we were Son's drummer. And a lot of the bands during that time they were the bomb that dropped. Once they left, all the other bands kind of dissipated, and some of them moved to Toronto, some of them started, a law degree.
Right, yeah.
And so we kind of figured, well, we should move on to bigger and better things, and so we kind of, actually it was at a party in Brandon that we met Ian Clements, who would then become our drummer, and he already lived in Winnipeg, which was convenient.
And he's been on the show before too. Actually.
Oh, right on, yeah.
A couple times, actually, yeah.
He's good. He's a good guy. And Micah Ehrenberg is he was a good buddy of mine going way back. And so it was kind of...
Well, he's on Matlock, right?
Yeah. But, he was our Winnipeg connection.
Okay.
He was, we opened for Little House, his band at the time. That was our first Winnipeg gig.
Okay.
And we just thought it was close and we'd be not too far from family, so we just decided to make the trek to Winnipeg.
Yeah. I would say those are good examples of how Winnipeg and Brandon aren't completely removed from one another.
Sure, yeah.
Because, we did have friends out in Winnipeg, and, we would play the Folk Fest, and there'd be all these people from Winnipeg, and we'd hang out.
The Brandon Folk Fest,
the Brandon Folk Fest was a good...
Yeah, I know people who go there every year from Winnipeg. It's not so far that it's...
And it's a small enough festival that even if you're a middling act, you could have a good set there. And
sure.
Yeah, we headlined there a couple of years.
Oh, nice.
Brandon band.
Which is pretty cool.
That is cool, yeah. So, just to jump completely forward now, this is the CD that's coming out is the final CD, and it's coming out of the final show.
Yes.
So, after all the 8 years of this being a band in different cities and everything, why is it ending? What's happening to kind of put this to a close?
Well, as I said, Logan is all over Canada because he's kind of a hired gun guitar player on a lot of other projects.
I don't know him, but I definitely see him pop up on social media, in people's bands and stuff. Right?
Yeah.
So
and he's got his own thing.
Right. Yeah,
and he's been a solo act. Actually, his first album he released probably 3 years ago, and he's finally now working on his sophomore album. And so his kind of motivation is to focus on that.
Yeah.
And so, we... finally attaining a talent like Logan and him being my best friend, for him to move on, which I'm totally in support of, but for that to lose that, it's kind of hard to try to go back to the drawing board.
Sure.
And
you can't just put in a replacement member to fill the
spot.
And
we've replaced guitar players over the years and drummers over the years, but it just felt like these past 2.5 years was where it was the most creatively fulfilling and solid. And we had a good run of 6 albums, and there's actually an amalgamation of reasons, or an amalgam of reasons, whatever it is, and they're all positive. It's not like there's any animus or any ending with any chips on our shoulder.
Right.
And in many ways we knew going in that this would be our last album, which made us focus on it all the more. So it's bittersweet, but mostly sweet.
Okay. That was actually going to be my next question, is did you know when you were making this that it was the end? So I guess what was the reason behind, if you knew it was coming out at any end anyway, what made you want to record one last thing? Did you just have songs that needed to get down?
We were planning on recording the album, and then Logan dropped the news that he was not planning on sticking around for the group. So we're like, let's just do one last hurrah. We have the songs, but we were... The fourth and fifth album we did with Lloyd Peterson and a guy named Dale Penner, which we kind of went beyond our first 3 albums were in a garage studio in Brandon.
Okay.
And so we kind of went beyond that, our safety net, our financial safety net as well, to kind of expand our sound and work with different people. And then for this last album, we decided, well, let's keep it tight-knit, let's keep it with friends. And so we recorded half a block away at our friend Liam Duncan's house.
Okay.
And so he did that for cheap, and it was just a great experience, I think.
Yeah.
Do you think it's like a fitting send-off to the band? Like, does it wrap everything up nicely?
Yeah, I mean, the songs we have on this album, I mean, you go through, like, almost like your whole life, and within each song, you can reflect upon the time in the band and all that. Like, for me, personally, I listen to some of these songs, and it just, you know, makes me tear up with the memories I've shared with these guys.
Oh, cool.
And I guess on that note, we usually try to have a concept for every album, and the concept has been following the character of Sebastian Al. But our last album was kind of the last story of Sebastian Al, and this concept is truly like how I got to this point. So it starts off with like being born in Saskatoon, and then thoughts about, you know, elementary school and adolescence, and then it goes into losing virginity, then it goes in, like, it kind of runs the gamut of my life through song.
Okay, so very autobiographical?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so we call it The Ties That Bind, to kind of reflect everything that we've amassed and everyone we've met and how they've impacted.
From the suburbs of Saskatoon. Broadway's nice in the summer, you know. Broadway's nice in the summer. Across the bridge from the Besborough Road. Across the bridge from the Besborough Road. You call it Paris of the prairies for a reason. Yeah. So nice in any given season. And anywhere we go, we'll leave a piece of me there. I got Saskatchewan in my blood, in my bones, everywhere. I went from A to the cat in the field, and the cow jumping over the moon. To read the politics on the basics of the papers of the daily news. I grew up too fast, I grew up too soon. I said a little white boy from the suburbs of Saskatoon.
in putting this whole thing together, has it sparked any kind of like, oh shit, I wish we weren't ending it? Like, I mean, you're obviously preparing for the show. You've been doing all the work, getting the album together, getting it pressed, getting the artwork and all that. Has there been any point where thinking like, I really like these songs, I want to keep going, or are you pretty much like, the whole time it's in your head that this is a closure kind of thing?
In many ways, like, usually when we're done an album and they arrive manufactured in the boxes and we hold them in our hands, to me, at that moment, it's already old news, and I'm on to the next one. Sure. And we might have 2 or 3 songs ready for the next album. And this time, we have nothing. But in the weirdest way, it is a good closure, because personally, and I'm only speaking for myself here, the past couple years, I found that the kind of hoops you have to jump through in the music industry to make it, I didn't have the personal fortitude for. Like, we did our little tours, and after a while I realized that's not where my passion really was in touring. And then, the live shows just became kind of a necessary evil to make money to then pay for the albums, where my true passion was in creating the albums. And so to kind of finish off, and to be perfectly frank as well, the past 2 years I'm in love, so the songwriting kind of slows down.
Sure. You need to be miserable.
It helps, right?
I have a saying where it's like, songwriters are miserable when they're happy, and they're happy when they're miserable. And so I don't have any songs for the next album, so it's kind of fitting. Maybe after the dust settles I'll start writing again, but not right now.
Sure.
And it's kind of a nice feeling.
Sure.
What about you?
Well, I'd say it's definitely bittersweet. There's some songs here where I'm like, oh man, I wish we could go on tour and play these and stuff like that. But, I mean, for me, I just graduated from university, and I feel like I'm in the same boat as everybody else, where it's like there's other stuff.
Yeah, there's the real life stuff that comes out.
Yeah. But I know for all of us, music is a huge passion. And every single one of us in the band, like drummer, guitarist, bassist, keyboard player, we all are songwriters ourselves, and we have our own projects that we might want to delve into as well.
And now you have the time to, I guess, right, with this band being over yet.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And that's the awesome thing about having a band that you shared such a close bond with, is that when you release stuff, there's going to be at least a few other people who are like, yeah, man.
Yeah. Well, I guess, or that you can call up if you need, a guitar or a keyboard.
That too.
Exactly, yeah. Actually, I was just in Toronto with my girlfriend. We went to Toronto and Montreal, and Logan was in Toronto re-recording some parts for his new album.
Oh, yeah.
And the piano parts that I played for him on his album, they were listening back and they're like, oh, that's a bit out of tune. And the guy's like, well, I know some people in Toronto we could call up. And he's like, well, actually, the guy is right in Toronto today. So it's kind of cool. And I know that, and that's a good feeling too. And we're still all friends. We're still good friends. And I know even if nothing becomes of it, we'll still get together and jam once in a while, and it'll be bring back them old feelings.
Yeah.
Sorry sounding like we're old.
No, but that's
remember when?
Back in the day.
But you do have 6 albums. I mean, that's even in 8 years, that's a pretty significant amount of output. Like, a lot of bands will do 2 albums in that time. So.
And that's what I found, especially back in the Brandon days when I was young and kind of a sponge and soaking it all in about what to do. Because Brandon's small enough that most bands can play, because I hear a lot of towns are hard to get into, or cities especially, but Brandon, you'd see bands from all over Canada. And I remember back in the day, I'd go to everything. I lived in an apartment a block away from the Decker, and I'd go to everything. And I remember seeing some band that I thought was pretty good, and they're like, oh, we're from Calgary, we're doing our first cross-Canada tour, promoting our EP.
Yeah. And
I'm like, that's, I guess, what you got to do. And then you'd see them a year later, and they're like, we're promoting our EP. And I'm like, well, why? And so, essentially, our first album, we started out with the idea of making it an EP, six tracks, doing a tour. But then by the time, it took a while to get the album made, and by the time we were nearing the end, we're like, well, we got 7 more songs, let's just throw it on, because in my mind, an album's better than an EP to tour with.
Right.
And then by that time, it's like, well, we have enough songs for a second album.
So just go.
So 2 albums is better than 1 album. And so it just, it became clear early on that my passion was in the recording studio.
Yeah.
And so it basically became that dragon that I was always trying to catch and that drug I was always trying to fix, where it's like, let's get back in the studio.
Yeah.
Even if nobody's really wanting an album, let's make another one.
I kind of like that attitude towards it, though, because I think a lot of people, I mean, just the, like, we got songs, let's go do it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people will agonize over, like, 2 songs they've been working on for 3 years, right? And I when I was in bands, I always was the same way. I mean, like, it's like, we have 5 songs, go, record it, and then they're done, next ones. It's kind of, I think it's like most people who play music are either one way or the other. There's not a lot of middle ground. It's either we're going to just, like, labor over these songs, or we're just going to barf them up and go to the next thing, right?
Well, I think there's merit to both.
Totally.
Because I definitely have those perfectionist friends who...
Yes,
it's
right.
Even within the band, we've had that. There were people who were like, no, we need to work on this more.
Yeah. But the way I see it is like the songs are time capsules. So if they have, the pimples and warts on them from when you just recorded them, you'll look back later like you look fondly on a yearbook. And just like... And you're always growing, so I like to see, where I was album to album. And if we waited on, like, if we sat on an album looking for a label that never ended up happening, and then it's 2 years later and we don't like playing these songs anymore. And I didn't want to get stuck in that rut, because I have seen and still do see bands that I love and I've been watching for 10 years, and they're playing the same set list.
Yeah. And for that exact reason, that they haven't, they've released one album in 10 years.
That would just be a different kind of Dante's Inferno for me.
I mean, like, art is never perfect.
No.
Like, you could work on a painting for 30 years or writing a book for 30 years, but really what's important is spreading, I don't know, your message.
I think because creativity begets creativity. So the more you write, and that's what I found especially, like, and that's a thing too, why it's kind of a perfect end to it, is because the group that we have acquired now is so goddamn talented, and because they are songwriters in their own right, their input is just insane. So I found myself writing better because I knew whatever I threw at them, they'd throw it back 10 times better.
Sure.
So the songwriting just kept getting better and better and better. And so I feel like in many ways this is our coup d'etat. I don't even know what that means. But, but there are like...
Your pièce de résistance.
The pièce de résistance. So, like, I don't know if we could...
French and their Latin.
We're running the gamut.
Yeah.
I don't know if we could go beyond it. It's one of those things where I don't want to... Even if, like... I don't know. I think it was kind of... The writing was in the sand, because even if we did make another one, I don't know if it would have the same energy. Who's to say it would, who's to say it wouldn't, but it just feels right.
Yeah. I love the amount of metaphors that are happening here. There's like a big list of them just happened there,
Let's get lost before the sun goes
But something you said earlier, though, just a few minutes ago, about being in Brandon and going to see pretty much everyone who's coming through, I think that's a lot of people in smaller communities, and Winnipeg I include in this because compared to Toronto or Vancouver or even Calgary, sometimes the amount of shows we get are kind of dismal. But I think the benefit to that, especially even in an even smaller community, is that you will hear stuff that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise thought of because, oh, there's a show tonight, I guess I'm going to check it out. Who is this band? They're from Calgary, they're touring, maybe they're great, and then maybe they turn out to be amazing, and you've absorbed that rather than just, I'm only going to the shows of the bands I hear on the radio, and then you miss that whole other kind of like underground current of bands coming through.
Well, especially in Brandon, you're not hearing anyone you heard on the radio.
Right, exactly. So you have to go out and see, and it'd be some smaller band, which maybe is going to give you a different kind of idea of what touring is or what bands are supposed to sound like.
Yeah, and you learn a lot of what not to do as well.
Yeah.
And you create your own path. And I think in many ways what we've done is the lesson to others in what not to do. It's all a crapshoot. No one really knows. So long as you do what you think is right or what you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
And like I said, like I found pretty early on, I'm not much of a schmoozer, so I'm not good at workshop junkets or meeting industry type. And I'm not good on the road for those reasons. But I'm comfortable with the fact that I'm just putting out albums. If nobody hears them, that's fine.
They're still there, right? Yeah.
And they're still mine. And like I am making the albums that I want to hear.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like I still love listening to my albums. If that's vain, it's like George Lucas said he wanted to make Star Wars so that everyone would just copy it and he could watch the copies.
Yeah, because he wanted to see movies like his idea. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's. I don't think that's vain. I think it's like you should like what you do, right? It shouldn't just be. I mean, I know we were talking earlier about record and get it out there, but you should still want to listen back to it because the songs have the character. They have character from that time or from the way they're recorded, and you like you're saying, you're hearing them and it brings back all the memories of all the where you were at the time. So that's cool.
So in many ways, that's esoteric of us to just like love it for that reason. But yeah, I think. Sonically, we have grown exponentially, especially from our Brandon days where it was, warts and all, a wannabe folk band, but really kind of had this other side that was a little more 70s pop oriented, and then it just kept adding over the years. Once we, for our third album, got an electric guitar, there was no going back from there, so it just kept adding and becoming something different. And
we used to play like mandolin, kazoo, and stuff like that, but... lately, it's been more rock and roll.
We can still play rock and roll kazoo. It's still a thing. So at this point, though, I mean, now that you have all those albums and you have all these years of being a band and trying whatever you've tried to kind of finesse get the sound you want, who is the audience for this? I mean, you have your last show, you have your last album out. Do you have an existing base of fans who have been listening to you for years, or like
they've primarily given birth to us? But. No, and that's the interesting thing is because my sensibilities, like this might be an embarrassing admission, but like can I swear on this?
Yeah.
Okay. I went dainty there for a second. But I love Billy Joel.
Okay.
I love the band America.
Okay.
I love 70s pop.
Right.
Piano pop type stuff with guitars like Allman Brothers, like guitar harmonies and stuff. And a lot of people who like that have blue hair. So that's
fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah.
A lot of our audience is kind of the older generation. We find
blue hair could have gone either way, young or old, depending.
Yeah, I guess so.
Took me a second. It was like,
so it's interesting. I think, and this might be tooting my own horn, but it's not so much the mass public that is interested. I find it's people who are musicians. Kind of dig what we're doing. And older people.
Okay.
That's what I find. I don't know what you find.
I think it's mostly older people.
Yeah.
But there are younger people who dig it too. But I don't know. I think a lot of younger people are into different kinds of music than, good old rock and roll these days.
Yeah. Although it's funny because, like, I mean, I've been doing this for almost 6 years now. And obviously I played in bands and stuff before then. So I've seen a lot of kind of... I guess trends within the local music scene come and go. Obviously, there's so many different genres that all these trends are happening on top of each other. But it does seem like now, and this doesn't necessarily apply to you guys, but I've noticed a lot of more straight ahead rock and roll bands kind of emerging from Winnipeg and not being ashamed of being straight ahead rock and roll bands. Because like, you know, when I was in punk bands and stuff like in the late 90s and everything, the idea of wanting to be a radio rock band was like, people were disgusted. You know? This is not acceptable. You can't do this.
And you look at all the hate that Nickelback had.
Right, exactly. I mean, I definitely wouldn't call myself a fan of their music in any way, but they take so much shit, right? Yeah. And it almost seems like that kind of thing, which again doesn't describe you guys, but it's almost more okay now. Like bands are independent bands are starting to play that kind of rock style, and it's like it's not shunned. Yeah,
it's the cycle, fads.
For sure. Yeah. So you're rock and roll with the young people. I mean, just, you know, people in their 20s, like it's starting to become okay again.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even know if we're like rock and roll.
Well, I know that's why I was kind of had a disclaimer on that. It doesn't necessarily fit you guys, but yeah.
Like it's probably even less of a credit to us, but I think we have more of a pop sensibility in the the 70s mentality. And to be honest, my main focus is lyrics.
Sure.
So, yeah, it's kind of more, not necessarily radio rock, but I try to have something that is pleasing to the ear, but something that it could be intellectually digestible if you read the words.
Right. If you actually take the time to fully kind of experience it. Yeah.
It's difficult to really pigeonhole us into a genre, I'd say. Like, I say rock because the McKillop brothers are all about
the guitar.
Yeah.
So,
and then I guess folk doesn't necessarily apply it the same way it used to, right? Like,
but we like harmonies and stuff like that.
Very much three-part harmony oriented.
Yeah. I mean, on this album, like, there's so many different styles of song. Like, we have a jazzy song, we have a few rock and roll songs. We have one that's a little almost metal.
Okay.
I mean, metalheads would probably say, no, that's not metal.
Yeah. Right, but
to
metal
me,
for
it's
you.
pretty metal.
Yeah.
To our mothers, it's fair.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Summer sun is something special. It don't happen every day. Most of the time we got a gray shroud hovering over a rain cloud chasing us away. But I got luckies in the cooler. I called it poor man champagne. Brent and Jackie got the firewood, and Micah's got a real good song he wants to play. And we'll sing in 4/4 time with 3-part harmonies and too much wine. One of those days turns to one of those nights, and we'll be just fine until the next sunshine. There's a party in the kitchen, but we ain't missing much at all. They're just debating politics. I got no time for that shit. I ain't running for city hall. Hey, where the hell is he? Is he hiding in his room? Let's just crack another beer, hoping that's the one to hear. Summer's over way too soon. And we'll sing in 4/4 time with 3-part harmonies and too much wine. One of those days turns to one of those nights, and we'll be just fine until the next sunshine. the next sunshine.
Once this is done, I mean, you've kind of been gearing up to this for a while now, obviously, with recording this and knowing it was the last one and then getting the show together and everything. What happens then? Like, after you get off stage from that last show, then what? I mean, do you all expect that you're going to be kind of launching into your own projects after this, or is it sort of going to be like a moratorium playing music for a bit just to, like, kind of, you know, get over the loss of the band, I guess? Is that a thing, or is it just everyone sort of goes their separate ways? And...
Well, I know that Glenn, like, our drummer, he plays in a lot of different bands. So
he's
he's
already
U of M, he has
right.
a degree in music, so he's, like, professional musician doing that. And then Logan is the same thing, just touring and playing in all these different bands.
Sure.
But Colton and I, like...
Students.
We're students. I just graduated, so I'm, like, going to probably be focusing on that.
Right.
And,
in that kind of post-school limbo sort of thing?
Yeah. I mean, I'll still find time to, like, pick up a guitar and strum away on it, but I need to fix my Pro Tools at some point,
It's
actually.
been a while.
Yeah. I would love to record more, but right now it's not the main focus.
Okay.
Yeah, and myself included, it's one of those things, I'll wait till the dust settles, but I'm in no rush to, like, sit there, because I know the second that I do find myself writing a song that I like and have, I'll just want to get back into the studio, and that costs money.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So we'll see. I don't want to say anything that I'll 2 years from now regret and be like, you idiot, of course you're going to get back into this.
Yeah, I feel like it's something where you keep coming back to it over and over.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, especially if you've, with a band like this where you've been doing it for so long, it seems like it would be difficult to just complete full stop, never touch an instrument again. But yeah.
And that's the like, I've been asked, like, oh, you're going to start a solo project or you're going to start a new group, but like I said, the things that I found, the hoops that you have to jump through weren't my thing.
Yeah.
And, being, looking back at being, a 19, 20-year-old being like, oh, touring is going to be so much fun and this, and then being, 28 now and being like, oh, well, I just like staying at home and, I don't have kids, but I might as well have. But, the idea of starting something new, knowing what I know now, just is, the thought isn't there, but my main passion with music now is recording or just sitting around with friends and song swapping.
Sure.
Well, I think that's the thing. Like, for us, it's always just been a group of really good friends playing music together.
And that presumably will still happen, whether the band exists or not, right?
Yeah, so we'll still have our friendship and our sharing of music, so
sure.
I feel like we'll do okay.
Yeah, we'll be fine.
What are the details about the show?
So it's at Times Changed, which I'm very happy about. We play Times, here and there. We haven't been playing much in the past few years, but our past two album releases were at the WEC.
Okay.
And it's a beautiful room.
It is, yeah.
But if you have 100 people there, it looks like you have 2 people there.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
And the Times has always been that place to me ever since I moved to Winnipeg. That is just my go-to. That's the one bar I know I can go to by myself.
Sure.
Comfortably. And I'll know the people serving, they'll know which drinks I want, and I know I'll see good music. So it's just to, like, have our last show at probably my favorite bar in the world.
That helps, right?
It's a good feeling, for sure. Mm. And I guess, opening on the Friday is Mike Ehrenberg Band. So that'll be fun, because actually he was our first show in Winnipeg.
Yeah, that's great,
to be our last...
You bookend it,
Yeah, bookend, exactly. And then Liam Duncan has a project that he's working on. He was the one who engineered our album. Okay. So he'll be closing out the Saturday.
Cool.
And that's November 2nd and 3rd.
Right.
There you go.
Right. Okay, so I mean, are you... and the CD is coming out at those shows?
At the shows. Okay. I'll probably have them at Music Trader and all those types of places, but I might not, so you might have to come to the show.
Well, I mean, that kind of leads to another question, though. If people, they may be hearing this months later or something, or a year later, like...
Too bad you missed it!
Will they be able to get these? Is it just a limited release, or do you have a whole bunch of them that are going to hopefully be...
We have boxes and boxes, and actually they made a mistake on the CDs, so they had to resend more, so we have more than we need.
Yeah.
So hopefully,
please buy them out.
Please buy them. So hopefully, and we will have digital copies on our Bandcamp sites and whatnot.
Okay. And then as far as the 5 other albums, Are those still in print or available, or are some of them?
We still have the boxes in there.
Yeah, and they're on Bandcamp as well.
Okay, so people can still get them. Because usually, like when we kind of are talking about this stuff with a band, it's always like, oh yeah, you can buy them at our shows.
Yeah,
we're on tour, buy them at every show. But you guys, I mean, this is the end, right? So
no, that's the thing, and that's another avenue that musicians smarter than us have gone down, which is just distribution and things like that. That all that stuff is so beyond even my comprehension that we'll just sell them out. We might have yard sales every now and then.
Nice. I've actually I've had this idea, and it almost happened a couple of years ago, and then it just fell through. But I wanted to have like a Winnipeg band swap meet, where we like got a venue and just everyone who had old merch and
That'd be amazing.
Just set up a table, paid $5 or whatever, set up a table. And just so you can go there and there's 20 bands or more or whatever, and they're all selling their old shit for cheap.
Yeah.
Because like I'd buy
a
a ton of it. I'd go table to table, yeah.
I was actually thinking that like at the Forks a while back, my girlfriend and I were there, and they had a storefront that they were building. And I'm like, it'd be great if they put in just local music, Manitoban music, and just sold it there. Because, there definitely are the venues or the stores that do sell local stuff, but I don't know if it's just us, but they don't tend to sell much there.
Right.
And I guess you just need to be in circulation and radio, and if there was a formula to follow, everyone would be doing it. So I don't know how we can move more.
Well, that's the hardest thing, I think, is because the internet has kind of equalized everything, where any band can just get their name out, for free without having any kind of marketing background or agents or managers or any of that shit. They can just, here's songs, listen to them. But then you need that other part to sort of get people to actually hear it. Like, it's there, which is great, and not everyone has that skill set. I mean, it sounds like you have this exact problem, right? There's people who are really, really passionate about the music they do. They make great music, and it should be heard, but they're the creative people. They're not the salespeople.
I'm not the brain. Yeah. I'm sure we can all agree on that.
But yeah, it's a weird thing though. You have to do that. You have to at least have some part of your job as a musician is to market yourself, and it's weird because there's supposed to be someone who does it for you. Right?
Well, and the people the friends of mine that do have that capability, it just boggles my mind. Like, Madeline Rogers is a good example. She is just the hardest working and so smart and knows exactly what to do. Well,
and seeing her album that just came out, the amount of promo and stuff she was doing for it everywhere. Yeah. I've met her once, and I follow her on one form of social media, and I saw tons of it. It was just this bombardment. I knew that album was coming out.
Very smart girl. Yeah. And Liam Duncan, who did our thing with the Middle Coast, and now with his stuff, he's 23, 24, but he might as well be 40 because he's just so smart and so just on top of it, and willing to wake up at 8 a.m. to send 100 emails that you might only get one response back to.
For sure,
he has that, and I don't.
It's almost an age thing though, because people. I mean, like you said, you're 28, right? Like people maybe 5 years younger than you have had that much more time growing up with this being the format, right?
Yeah,
I'm 36, so I mean, when I was in bands. This is not that long ago. We were hand dubbing tapes and photocopying the covers and putting them together. And I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't have a Bandcamp page until 10 years after the band broke up. It's just here's a tape. We have 10 of them. If you buy one, cool.
I know, and we're so reliant now on Facebook events. I don't know how else we do it. Posters. Yeah. Is that how you did it? Did you have a guy with a bell down portage? Hear ye, hear ye.
It's just completely changed, and there's people who are just born into kind of this is how things work, and they have the aptitude for doing it is crazy. It's just you can have a band that's absolutely terrible, but they can market themselves so well that
we all know
they jump ahead, right? They jump the queue.
It's insane,
undeservedly. Yeah. So, but.
I mean, well, that's the thing. Undeservedly, if you're willing to put the work in, you deserve. You do,
right? But I mean, music-wise, the music sucks. But
and that's the thing. Art is so subjective.
It is. Oh yeah, for sure.
That we might be so smitten on what we're doing, but to other people, it might be trash.
Totally.
And that's the thing to walk such a safe line in a genre of pop and in old rock oriented. You kind of feel like you're the Jerry Seinfeld in a whirl of Bill Hicks's.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But we can't all be, what's a good example?
Seinfeld lived a lot longer than Hicks, though.
Well, that's true.
He's still going.
I suppose, but we can't all be Slow Spirit. We can't all be truly profound, out there, avant-garde band. And I'm so glad they exist, and I'm so glad that there are intellectual bands out there.
Yeah.
I like to have fun. I like to jump around on stage, and I like to sing happy tunes, sing sad tunes, but stuff that's more palatable. But there are those bands like Slow Spirit who are very intellectually approaching the music, and I respect the hell out of it. But yeah, we're kind of more safe. I guess.
Well, that's fine, right? I mean, like you said, it's so subjective that your safeness might appeal to someone way more than that kind of more abstract thing does. So it's
exactly
completely up to the listener.
I think you always envy and wish to be what is like opposite.
Oh yeah, for sure, yeah. Because you see it happening, you're like, oh, I wish I could do that.
Yeah.
Because it's working for them or whatever. And
it's just so fascinating. Yeah. It's beyond my comprehension.
For sure,
in many ways.
But then if you tried it, it might fail miserably, right? Yeah. And vice versa too, right? If they tried what you're doing, it might not.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even read music. So.
Right. And and it's funny because someone could hear what you guys are doing and then think, oh, I wonder how to play this, and can I get some sheet music for this, right? And it doesn't exist. But yeah, it's
and actually that's one of the more fascinating things about Logan is a classically trained guitar player, Glenn drums. Colton is very much I don't know if he ever took lessons, but he's a very intuitive musician. And to hear Ian say he doesn't even read music, the fact that his bass lines are some of the most melodic that I've heard, and I'm not even saying this because he's here to pat him on the back, but I've had bass players tell me how great his approach is.
Right.
And that might be the same thing where they're so steeped in technique and how to approach the bass that to just have that free-form guttural instinct of how to approach the bass, they envy it.
Yeah.
And maybe vice versa.
Well, and I think what you just said too, but some of the members have the classical training, some don't. I think that's always my experience being in bands. None of them went anywhere, so maybe it doesn't matter. But has always been that I was always the guy who didn't have any kind of training. I was just kind of making shit up as I went along. And the last band I was in, there's a 3-piece. I was doing that. The other two guys were incredibly good at music, just beyond good. And it worked way better than if we'd all been really good at music, because what I was doing didn't make sense from a technical perspective, but it fit because they had the chops to kind of allow that to happen, right?
And so it lifts you.
Exactly. So it's they're keeping things steady with actual technical things that work, and they know they work, whereas I'm just making some noise that sounds good to me, and it meshes well. And I think that those are always the best bands. I think if you have a band where everyone is completely self-taught, it sometimes doesn't work right because you need an anchor there, sort of keeping things together because they know how to make it work.
Yeah.
And then if everyone's too trained, it doesn't work because it almost seems too formal and nothing kind of jumps out of the box because everyone is at this level where this is how it's supposed to sound.
Yeah. I think it all comes back to, it's a Venn diagram where it's a main circle. So it's a Venn diagram, in my opinion, of the main part has to be heart.
Yes.
And you could have the technical, you can have the experience, you could have the industry know-how, you can have all this stuff, but they all need to circle around the heart.
Yeah.
And your passion for it.
For sure.
And there's all those bands that are super great, and they write great music, but they're just miserable. They don't get along, and they're just doing it because they have a label now, and it'd be awful to break up because they're making money. And there's all those different stories you hear, but those, I think, so long as you have heart, you're never really a failure. You haven't failed at the end of the day. Because, you could say that success is the end game, but success can be, weighed in varying degrees.
Right, what's success to you, right?
What's success to me? Yeah. So my success, I can say at the end of the day that we've made 6 albums. I can show, maybe possibly my grandkids down the road. Yeah. Here's what I've done. And that is my success. There are the people that are on the road all the time and touring, and that's their passion. And if it works for them, that's great. But I like something that I can hold and show,
Mm-hmm. Well, and I guess the good thing, too, is about having all this work out there. Even if years after the band is done, those albums are still floating around. Mm-hmm. And someone could pick one up, and they could not have any clue who you are, and just be like, oh, I love this. And it could inspire them to do something. One of the things, I don't know if I've talked about this on the show before, so I'm sorry to people who listen to this a lot. But, I have been, over the past few years, I've always done it, but it's been more extreme in the past few years. I've been hoarding local music. Anytime I find an album by a local band, CD, vinyl, tape, whatever, I usually buy it. And a lot of the stuff you can find in thrift stores, you can find dollar bins. And there's some stuff from, I started going to shows, all ages shows in 95. And there's stuff from before that I had never heard. I'd only heard of the bands, and I find it for $1.50 in someone's yard sale.
Yeah.
And I listen to it, and it's this is amazing. If I had heard this then, maybe my trajectory of playing in bands would have completely changed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's cool that, I mean, it's kind of hard now because CDs are kind of getting pushed out, which sucks. Because again, I hoard.
Yeah,
but like
you're old school now.
but like the fact it's out there. Someone like me could come around 20 years later and be in a Valley Village, and there's one of your albums. They have no clue who you are. They look at it says Winnipeg, recorded in Winnipeg. Cool, I want to check this out, and then it could do something. There could be a song on there that really clicks with them, and at that point you have no idea because it's out of your hands, right? It's out there, and whoever decides to glom onto it. I guess,
well, exactly, and that's the thing, and that is another form of success too. It's like if what you're doing, again, going back to the Venn diagram, if what you're doing is solely for monetary gain, that is less than half of the picture. Because if you connect with somebody, if somebody picks up your music and loves it, and might not promote you, might not get you that gig, or might not get you that, but if it is personal to them, that is a success in and of itself that money can't buy.
Totally, yeah.
And
you might not even know that success happened,
exactly.
right? But
And like to have that thought's great. And going back to lyrics being the primary focus, I do try to have that. They are very specifically personal songs, but I think the more personal you get, the more kind of general of cathartic feel, if it's received, can be.
Sure.
If somebody listens to it and like responds to it, and there's many songs on this that deal with, I kind of went back to adolescent angst and weird thoughts. The opening track is called Ordinary Life, which kind of fits the theme of the band is ending, and all the naysayers that were in my head or in my life have kind of like come back to be like, you're never going to make it, or this, that, and the other thing. And now that it's over, it's like all I have is an ordinary life.
Right.
And it's kind of a sardonic, negative song in a way, but it is kind of playful and hopeful in a way too, where it's like, this is what I am. And I think that could be cathartic to other people going through similar experiences.
Cool. Well, and it's funny how you mentioned like how other people interpret the songs, because even I listened to one of the songs and I was like, is this what this is about?
Yeah.
And he was like, well, that's not what I meant, but like, since it was so personal to me, it took on a new meaning to Blair as well. Because he was like, wow.
Well, I guess it's just once it's out of your hands too. I mean, any interpretation of it is valid, right? Because it's what it does to the listener, and it could be completely the opposite of what you intended. Yeah.
Well, basically, all we do as artists, or even to be more specific, lyricists, we basically just try to throw a dart on a blank wall and have the listener paint the arrow or the target.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna wrap this up here. The show. Remind people when they can see the show and where they should be on.
All right, Ian, do your best announcer voice.
November 2nd and
so
3rd at the Times Change.
Okay,
that's on Portage in Maine.
It's there.
It's on Maine,
Yeah, Maine.
I think people probably know.
Yeah. And so November 2nd and 3rd, Micah Ehrenberg on the Friday, Liam Duncan Band on the Saturday, and it is also my birthday weekend, so let's have us some fun.
Do you know what time it starts?
Show starts at 10.
10.
Both nights?
Both nights.
Both nights 10.
No pre-sale tickets, so show up at the door and hopefully one of the fine people will let you in.
Yeah, cool. And then if someone's hearing about you for the first time on this show, and it's probably the last time because you're ending, but what do they do if they want to hear more of the stuff? I mean, you have those 6 albums. They're available on the internet. How does someone...
Yeah. People of the Future. We have a band camp. So just Google Sebastian L. We have a band camp site. We have a few videos on YouTube. And actually, I finally just learned how to make the picture video, where it's just the album art and then the
There's
track behind
things
it.
online just do it for you, eh?
Well, now...
So you just upload the song and give him the picture. And
he was so proud of himself.
I was so proud. But I'll do more of that. So we'll hopefully have more of our stuff on YouTube, so it'll be available for free. But if you want to buy them, go to our Bandcamp or come to our many yard sales in the future.
Right. Okay, cool. And then, I guess people should kind of just keep their ears open for anything you guys might be doing in the future. I mean, I know you said there's sort of...
Well, exactly, Logan McKillop's new album should be coming out, I think in February. I don't want to quote, but early next year, so look for that. It's amazing, it really is.
Cool. You already heard it, I guess?
I've been working on it.
Okay, right. Cool, okay, and if people want to hear more episodes of this show, you can go to witchpolice.com. All 300 and whatever episodes are there, free download and streaming. So they're kind of there in perpetuity, so if someone finds us 5 years from now, they can dig back and hear you guys talking about the album.
Exactly. They'll find me on the corner of a street with a can.
Yeah, and a box of CDs. All right, I think that's a good place to end. Thanks a lot for having me, guys.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Must you and I follow the same road forever? I know I can bide my time so long as we travel together. So lift the lid to reveal what's underneath, and turn every stone you may step on. Hand in hand, travel off the destined path to find